Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. We talk about everything on this channel when it comes to launching a new business, getting funding for that business, and really making it big when it comes to launching a new product into the world, or it could be a service if you want to. So I kind of want this video, want to talk just a tiny bit about coming up with a good idea. This could be a good startup idea. This could be a good idea for an e-commerce product, or a good idea when it comes to a Kickstarter campaign. We're going to run through a couple criteria. And the reason we're doing this is actually I've had a lot more coaching students who are booking calls with me just to find out if they have a good idea or not. So rather than, if you want to, you can always book a call, but rather than that, I really want to make a video on this just to help more and more people. So it's coming up right after this. Okay, so how do you know if you have a good idea, right? So good idea criteria. How do you know if you have a good idea for your startup? How do you know if you have a good idea when it comes to your business? How do you know if this is something that is worth your time? Now, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a creator, as a creative type, you have two things. You have money and you got time. And you have a limited amount of both, unfortunately, unless you're like a vampire and you can live forever, which would be pretty cool, right? I hope that I'll live forever, but I really doubt that. But you never know. Stem cells, right? Stem cells. So if you have a good idea, this can mean the world. This could be the difference between you plugging along with a career that you're not happy with, or a job you're not happy with, or a company you don't want to run, into actually accelerating to another path in your life, which opens up more and more possibilities for you in the future. So you can have just a beautiful life, lots of killer results in terms of your funding, in terms of the amount of money and sales that you're doing, and to really just, I think, almost develop another career for yourself so you can just step into that and live the kind of life that you want to. So we talk about good ideas. A good idea, you only need one. I'll be honest with you. You really only need one good idea and to execute upon that in order to radically and fundamentally change your life. You can think about any of those ideas that are out there, like Facebook, right? Coming up with a new invention of something like a camera, coming up with a new idea like Uber, that will radically change the life of the founder by acting on and identifying that idea. So this is between you and the life that you want to lead. And if you're able to go through the criteria I'm about to mention, there's nothing stopping you from then plowing forward and really applying that idea to the marketplace and getting some great real world feedback. So the first part of a good idea is how you came up with it. So what I want to ask you is how? How did you come up with it? Usually there are two ways. One is that you are the customer. Okay, you are a customer in the industry, or you've used other products in the past, or you've been trying this service out, which you are like, you know what, it could be so much better if it was this. One is that you are the customer, okay? And this is an incredibly great way to get started, because if you are a regular customer of a certain product, like for example, you're inventing a new tabletop game and you love playing tabletop games, that is killer because you know what's out there. You already know the industry. You don't have to do any research. Well, you do, but like not as much research when it comes to understanding the actual industry that you're gonna be launching the product in. And because you are the customer, you also then have the ability to judge the quality of that product. In the same way that if you're a chef, and you love eating, you can taste your own food and you're like, okay, this is good, or oh no, this is not that great, because you understand all of the other restaurants in the area, okay? So the first is that you are the customer. The second is that you just identify it. And you're not necessarily the customer, but you look out in the world and you notice a problem and you're like, you know what? They should invent this. Wait, why aren't they? Maybe I should invent this, right? I'm sure you're familiar with that frame of thinking, because people like us, we do this all the time, right? Like we're seeing things, we're seeing problems, we're like, oh, I could invent this, or this would be an incredible service, or I would do this. If you're an idea person, you probably relate with this. And I've come up with lots of ideas myself that have been successful that more of like picking up and identifying something, right? Versus me necessarily being the customer, okay? So identification of the idea usually is more intellectual, but it could also be based off of one experience that you had, or you noticed something. So for example, with like Howard Schultz, going to Italy and noticing something, noticing how people are deciding to serve their coffee, and then taking that process to America and founding Starbucks, right? you're noticing something, you're identifying something. It's a little bit more intellectual versus when you are the customer, it tends to be a little bit more emotional where it's like, this is a pain point. I need to solve it. Let's figure it out, right? It's a little bit different in that way. So either of these are valid, but the way in which you come up with it, if it is more in the identification, you have to do a lot more in the way of market research and understanding. And for this reason, a lot of people that are successful with their ideas tend to be customers, tend to be people who are customers in that industry or very familiar with that industry, have that industry trade knowledge. Doesn't mean you can't be successful, but just in my own experience, many of the great ideas out there tend to be the people that are familiar with the actual product. Versus, for example, someone trying to build a software app and they have no understanding of technology and they don't know anything about that marketplace and they don't even know anything in the way of the customers that are going to use the product. They just think it's a good idea. That tends to not work as well. The second portion of the good idea is, what is the problem that it solves? Okay, so the problem that it solves, you may have already heard about this, but every single product out there, every single business out there solves some kind of a problem. A camera solves a problem that I need to record myself so that other people around the globe can watch and benefit from this video. Microphone picks up my voice so it's easier to hear what I have to say. Easel chart allows me to communicate in writing my ideas, right? Every single product around you solves a problem. If it doesn't, usually you're not interested in buying it, right? Now you might be like, Sal, I understand what you're saying, but I buy things all the time that don't solve problems. I'm listening to music. What problem does that solve? Well, music solves the problem as well, that you need to be entertained, that you want to change your mood, that you want some cooler vibes. There's always a problem you can identify that a product, even if it's in the entertainment industry, will solve. Even movies, right? They solve a problem. So every single idea solves a problem. If your product does not solve a problem, it might be more based around something that's charitable or something that's more of a do-good project that's maybe a better fit for a nonprofit. Identify what is the problem that you're solving. Next, you want to identify who it is that experiences that problem, and more specifically, how much do they care? So there's going to be who, right? Who experiences that problem? How much do they care? I'm just going to say care. How much do they care about that? And are they willing to spend money to solve that problem? Now let me break that down because it does seem very simple. There's who, how much they care, and are they willing to spend money to solve that problem? Here's an example. Okay, so let's just say that we invented a really great new device that will hold a camera and allow me to do like a selfie stick kind of a thing. And let's just say that it also has other things built in, like, I don't know, like it's a heated selfie stick. So if I'm outside and I'm camping, I want to have a heated selfie stick in order to take video of me and my hands don't get like super cold or super cold. We'll say that's like a random product idea. Why did I have this? Oh, maybe I was out traveling in Massachusetts when it's really cold out and I was visiting some family and it was really cold and like I wanted to make a video and I was like, oh, you know what would be great if I had a selfie stick and then it would be warm and then I would, whenever I took it out, I'd be able to make a video, okay? So let's just pretend that that's the product idea. Problem, who? People that are making videos, people that are really engaged in taking photos of themselves and posting them on Instagram, tourists, all that kind of stuff. So I guess there is a who, obviously, because it came from an idea and a problem. How much do they care about it? This is the important question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much, and you have to be honest, how much does that person really care about solving that problem? Now it's difficult because in the moment, when I'm in that moment, let's just say, and I'm on the top of a mountain and I'm like, you know what, I would love the selfie stick that's like heated so I can warm my hands when I'm taking photos. Sounds like I'd care a lot, right? But in the grand scope of things, outside of the context of that environment, I'm not really thinking about that, honestly. Like, that's not a huge problem or issue that will crop up in my daily life, aside from that one narrow little experience, right? So in terms of a care, I'd probably say it's like a 4 or a 5. It might be like a nice to have accessory, but I don't think I'd want to buy a whole selfie stick or some, invest in that kind of thing unless I'm regularly out there in nature and, taking photos and stuff like that. In addition, if I'm regularly out there in nature doing those types of photos, I'm probably more in the line of looking for a high-end camera or something like that beyond just a selfie stick for tourists. If I'm doing that level of hikes, maybe if I'm like a really avid hiker, but something to really consider and think about is like, to what degree do they care about that problem? And I'll be honest with you, like talking to you in this video, I'm not sure. I would have to do my own market research to figure out the degree to which people care about that problem. The next is, are they willing to spend money to solve that problem? Let's just say the answer is yes. So they're willing to spend money in order to solve that problem. When they're going out in the cold, they're trying to take photos, they don't like it, I'm willing to spend money to solve that problem because it's large enough and agitated enough as a problem that they also experience it frequently. That is a good idea. However, if they only care about it like a 3 out of 10, and they're not willing to really spend money to solve the problem because they feel like it's just like it's like a nice to have kind of thing, then that's not going to be a good product idea because no one is going to spend money in order to buy them. Sounds very simple, right? Very difficult in practice to look at this honestly and to assess your own product idea. And in addition, most entrepreneurs will only discover whether or not people are willing to spend money when they get to the actual Kickstarter phase of the equation, or the Indiegogo phase, or they're doing a pre-order, or they're releasing this finally to the public, and then they've spent years of their life developing this product only to find out when they come out with it, oh, people aren't willing to spend money on it, and they find out that it actually wasn't a very good idea, okay? So there's a lot more that goes into this. You can always book a coaching call with me. We can go into this specifically for your specific product. But problem, who cares what? Okay, so we talked about the how, which is how you come up with the idea. We talked also a little bit about the problem and what this thing is gonna solve. What is next? So the next thing that you wanna consider, I'm gonna call kind of wrap 2 in 1, which is defensibility and market acceptance, okay? Defensibility and market acceptance. So we're gonna write this here, I'm just gonna say defense because it's a little easier for me to write. And we'll say market acceptance, okay? So what do I mean by this? Defense and market acceptance. Let's take an example here of back in the day when GUI, graphical user interface, was first coming about, okay? Now, when this was first coming about, people didn't know whether or not the market would accept that actual problem, right? And in addition, if it were to come out with this, how defensible would this new software solution be? So defensibility of a problem or defensibility of a product is really baked into what's going to happen when other competitors come into this niche. So is your defensibility going to include things, for example, like patents, right? Is it going to include more so your trademark? Okay. Is it going to include things like your marketing or your distribution strategy, right? So maybe you have better relationships with distributors and retailers. Where is the defensibility of this idea and this product going to come in? Because if it's something that people can easily knock off or easily replicate, it's going to be very hard for you to defend this, and thus you're going to spend years of your life, right, on this actual problem and creating the product, and then people can just really easily rip it off or can change it, or if it's just something that's like a minor iteration, something that's already out there, all the other established brands can just really easily kind of encroach onto your territory. So you want to think a little bit about the defensive moat, which is going to be around this actual product. And a great way to think about this is just kind of like, how hard is it going to be for other people to replicate what you're doing, or how hard is it going to be for other players to get involved with this? The other is the market acceptance, and this is actually super important. I was at a networking event recently in Miami talking with a guy, and he was talking about like augmented reality. And they had come up with a really cool, innovative solution when it came to augmented reality, but they were struggling to get companies to adopt this, even though it was a really cool solution and it was solving a problem. But it's because the company just couldn't make that leap forward when it came to technology that quickly. So market acceptance is a real thing. You could come out with a right product at the wrong time. And if you do, it doesn't mean you're going to be accepted into the market. You're too early. You're too early on the adoption curve. There's some great books about that, talking about like, the innovation curve and like the way in which a product will go from early stage adopters to more mature stage, and you can read up on that. But you want to think a little bit about the market acceptance. How easy is it going to be for people to wrap their mind around this new thing? can you phrase this idea in such a way that it's tied to something else? So for example, camera accessory. Everyone understands a camera accessory. If it's a whole new camera that's very different that attaches to your cell phone, okay, how can we tie that in? Is it a phone accessory then and something that you can attach then? How are you gonna make it sound much more familiar to the customer so that they instantly have a sense of what this is and they already feel like, oh, okay, I can kind of get a sense of how this is, or it's a little bit better, or it's different. In addition, if you have, for example, a product that fits into a larger ecosystem, like you develop an app, for example, naturally, there's gonna be a larger market acceptance versus if you created an app for another platform that doesn't exist, there's not gonna be as much market acceptance. So in terms of the story, GUI obviously had broad popular market acceptance, which was a result of Apple computers, and then Windows obviously also getting into the mix there. So this is an example of market acceptance as being super important and thinking just about, will this idea be accepted by the market? Okay, will it be accepted by the market? And if you have a defensive strategy, you have an idea of the market acceptance, there are other people out there that are buying this, there is a market for this, there's an industry for this, chances are you're onto a good idea because it means you can then also scale. Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillment is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillment today. Link in the description. The next thing that I'm going to mention here has to do more so with logistics. And then the final thing that I'm going to mention, it really is going to make it or break it in terms of whether or not you're successful. So you definitely want to stay around to the final point, if nothing else, because that is going to determine whether or not you are successful with this idea. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about is logistics. Okay, so logistics are what I consider to be, and everyone has different definitions with logistics. You could talk about the supply chain, right? I'm defining it this way because it's my YouTube channel. Logistics are every little thing that someone has to take or someone has to do to get this product into someone else's hands. Okay, so it's everything from the idea, if you want to think of like a factory, right? Everything coming from just your mind to getting this into someone else's hands. That's what I'm referring to when I say logistics. Okay, so logistics are people on your team, what they're contributing, the skill sets, the materials the product is made of, where you're sourcing those materials from, who's manufacturing it and putting it together. If you have a mold, for example, that you need to be made in order to make bunches of these widgets, where that is being done, where it's then being shipped to, how then it's being shipped out from a fulfillment warehouse like Fulfillment or something like that to many customers around the world. And then you're dealing with returns and orders and how they're finding out about the actual end product via Kickstarter or Indiegogo. That entire picture that I just painted for you is what I consider to be logistics. So logistics are going to determine whether or not you have a good idea, because if you come out with an idea where it's very hard to source the product, or it's very difficult to make a lot of them, like if it's a hand-carved table or something like that, it's gonna be hard. Eventually you're gonna run into a bottleneck when it comes to your logistics. You only have so many people to carve it. You only have so much space or a warehouse to carve it. You only have so many materials in terms of wood. So logistics are really gonna determine whether or not something is a good idea. Because if it's not, if it has horrible logistics, it could be the most amazing idea in the world, but if you can't source all of the materials you need, the talent you need to get it done, the materials to actually make the thing, it's never gonna exist in the real world. It's just gonna stay as an idea. So when I say logistics is one criteria of a good idea, that's what I mean is that if you think of a good idea as being something you can execute upon, you need to have strong logistics. Otherwise, it's never gonna get from in the earth, the materials, to actually someone's doorstep where they can use it, they can tell their friends about it, you can generate revenue, and you can continue to plow that back into business and grow it over time. The final part of a good idea, and I mean like an incredibly, insanely viral idea, is the marketing, okay? Is there a marketing angle? The marketing is actually more important than the product. I know, sacrilege, right? The fact that I'm saying marketing is more important than the product sounds crazy, right? Especially because we talk with product creators all the time. I agree with you. It's a difficult concept to swallow. But if you think of any major success, is it really the idea which is responsible for the growth of the business? Let's take about like McDonald's, right? How did you find out about McDonald's? Well, probably at some point in time, one of your friends brought you there from a previous experience. And you always recognize that brand name of the McDonald's arches everywhere you go. And you see it bombarded with you in the form of advertisements and tied to sporting events and etc., right? It's really built into the American consciousness. It's almost something that's part of a cultural fabric that makes up America. I've traveled a lot, my friends, and everywhere we go, you associate McDonald's with America. Marketing. That is what's responsible for the sales of hamburgers at McDonald's. Marketing. And in addition, marketing is the service they provide for all the franchise owners. Because the franchise owners, they got the product, they got the process, but they don't know how to do the marketing, which is what McDonald's does. Another example, right? I think of other types of products that are out there. For example, you think of like, even like the selfie stick is a good one that we had earlier. You can also think of things like the iPhone, and you can think of other kinds of marketing examples. New products come out like GoPro, right? GoPro went from nothing to $1 billion company just based on marketing. And the focus, or like the, I'd say, pairing behind this product with something that's more like fun, active, outdoor, skateboarding, doing outdoor fun, adventurous activities. And that pairing led to an adoption and acceptance by that market. And then what ended up happening? It obviously started to open up more. And then everyday people who are just going surfing or going to the beach or just wanting to go outside and just like take some cool videos and stuff like that, they're getting a GoPro for that reason, because they saw it as a basis of marketing. And then they started to see other people who had the GoPro, which then fueled the actual sales, and seeing those people participate in those activities, which they are also advertising and marketing. So marketing to me goes beyond just putting up a Facebook ad or putting up an Instagram post or a social media post. I just did a video on that, right? It goes beyond just that. It also talks about branding. It also talks about the perception when other people see you using that product in different environments. It's about the virality behind it. So every successful idea needs to have a successful marketing strategy. Otherwise, it's never going to grow. It's the same thing as if you filmed, let's just say, a really banger, amazing, killer movie, right? You filmed this incredibly beautiful, great scenery, great actors and actresses movie, right? But you didn't have great editing. You didn't have good audio. You didn't have good color grading. And then you released it and you expect people to like it? Heck no. That's all part and built into the marketing, as well. People showing up in the studio, people knowing about it, and actors going on talk shows talking about it. They gotta market it. Even though they have a good idea and a good product, they have to market that movie. Otherwise, it's not gonna generate sales around the world. So first of all, did you find this video to be helpful? Because if you did, give me a thumbs up and let me know. Come subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this. In addition, you can always book a coaching call with me at crowdcrux.com/coaching. But in addition, if this is something you are wondering, if this is an idea that you have, I urge you to get in touch, because more often than not, you might be onto something, but you maybe need a little bit of tweaks when it comes to this process, or you have the right puzzle pieces, but they're just like, they're not fitting together correctly. So really think about this process and how it applies to your business. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.